Welcome to Nomadic Diaries, a podcast revealing secrets of life lived overseas. We use storytelling to deliver insight and information on what it takes to live, love, move, and travel across the globe. Our guests are professionals from the world of global mobility. We hope that by opening their diaries to share their wisdom, that you, our listener, can benefit and enjoy more ease and grace in your expat life abroad. Hi, everybody. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are on the globe. And it is my pleasure to introduce my co-host, Sharon Fields.
Thank you, Doreen. Today we have with us Jane Garee. She is a global sales strategist, a trainer, a speaker, and an author who is revolutionizing the way travel-obsessed, service-based online business owners work and live, so they can embrace their spirit of adventure and combine everything they love to do with every place they want to go. That's wonderful. Welcome, Jane.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
So tell us where you're located today.
Well, today I'm actually working out of my home base, which is Cincinnati, Ohio. So I am at home today.
Great. Well, I'm going to get us started today. What are the three most important things needed to achieve location independence as a business owner?
Yes, this is one of my favorite questions and favorite topics to discuss because there are quite a number of things that you need to really be able to have a successful travel business lifestyle. So to provide some context, one of the things that people tend to believe is, well, how hard can it be? I'm going to go travel and I'm going to go take my laptop, and that's all you really need to have. Can't you just figure it out from there? And kind of, sort of, yes, there is some truth to that. But if we're really talking about living a nomadic lifestyle or being truly location independent and having a thriving business, there are three things you're really going to want to need to pay attention to. So number one, the first is the money. If your business isn't making consistent money and you're not worried about how that money is actually coming in or how you're generating revenue, then that right there you can see is an obvious problem. It's going to be challenging to travel the way that you want to travel if you don't have the surplus to be able to afford that. You don't need a ton of it. So one of the misconceptions is, or misperceptions rather, is that you need a bunch of extra money to be able to travel. That's not entirely true, but you do need some surplus. So the first thing that's really important about having a travel business lifestyle is you have to have the money to be able to do it. The second thing is you really need to know how to manage your business obligations with your travel opportunities. There's an integration piece into this that makes it both fun and successful. And so this is where the tangle of, well, I'll just take my laptop and it'll all work out, can get people into a little bit of a pickle sometimes. So you really need to know how to manage the whole process. Do you have a system? Do you have strategies in place? And are you really able to seamlessly integrate your business obligations with your travel opportunities? And then the third piece is, I don't really enjoy using the word mindset to some extent because it's such a big topic. It can pull up a lot of things for a lot of people, but it is a little bit of a mindset shift because what you want to do to have a joyful and easeful travel experience, again, with the integration of your business, is you have to learn how to master living like a traveler rather than a tourist. And that is not just something you want to apply to a travel business lifestyle. That's actually a life skill. And that would open up a whole box of a whole bunch of new things. But those three things, you have to be able to have the money, you need to be able to manage everything, and you need to master living like a traveler, not a tourist.
Right. And I agree with all of that because I started a nomadic life about 11 years ago, living out of a suitcase and carrying my laptop, and my phone. And I was going to, make some money and travel and slow travel. And it was all going to be great. And then the realities hit. But yeah, it is a mindset, a mind shift. And you kind of work through the challenges and you realize what works for you, what you enjoy, and you embrace what you can.
Yeah, it's true. And I've been doing this for decades, and I know some of the things that I know now, I really wish I would have known back then because I thought the same thing. I'm really dating myself here, but there were no laptops 30 years ago. But it was, well, how hard can it be? I'll take my books, I'll take my pens, and I'll figure the whole thing out. And you can, and you will, which is what I did. But I realized over the course of the past couple decades, there's so much more to it than that. And so really helping people get a shortcut in place so they don't have to learn everything the hard way. There are some experiences you're going to experience on the road or you're going to have on the road, and they're going to be challenging. And you just have to go through those so you understand what it means for you personally. However, there are plenty of things that you don't need to take the hard road on to have the experience if you've got an understanding of this is really what you're going to be in for.
And that's what you do. You help them. And I understand you help women over 50, which is terrific because we need all the help we can get in this new technology and new world. Doreen, do you want to add anything to that?
I would just like to know a little bit more about what is the life skill? You talked about the business obligations and travel opportunities and how they need to be a good fit. And we talk about a good fit lifestyles. And this is a little bit out of our skill set sometimes, because you are not talking about digital nomading here. We're talking about people who have a business that want to have a greater sense of freedom. I'm guessing you want to have a greater sense of fluidity and flexibility, and go where you want when you want. So tell me a little bit about the life skills that are required to marry these two principles together, the opportunities and the obligations.
Yes. So again, to provide a little bit of context, we all know what happened in 2020. And coming out of that now to 2023, going into 2024, we are currently at 37.5 million people who are working and living in a location-independent lifestyle. You can say it's nomadic, but again, there's an anchor of two things. Number one, they're not couch surfing. They have a primary residence, if you will. Not necessarily a home that they own, but they have a primary residence. Mm-hmm. And they're still in their working years, most of them by choice, because most of them are, again, over 50. But there's a love and a dedication and an attachment to, I'm not ready to just hang it all up and do whatever it is that you do when you're no longer working. So these are people that are still feeling very much the calling of the work that they're doing. Mm-hmm. The percentage, the amount of people that are now discovering and continue to discover that you can work and live from anywhere in the world, and it's you don't have to be in your 20s with a backpack. That is what has been a very interesting segment of the population, and it continues to grow. So the concept of needing to be able to seamlessly integrate your business obligations with your travel opportunities becomes paramount, because if you don't have the ability to integrate those two things, here's what happens. You either go, woo, I'm out having all this fun and this is amazing. And then there's a realization moment where you go, okay, and I'm actually a business owner in my business now. What am I going to do? I didn't pay enough attention to it. I've been having so much fun. I kind of neglected the business. On the flip side, I've seen people go, I am here. I am in this beautiful location. I've rented an apartment for 3 months. And I'm going to be very certain that I'm staying on top of my business. And they get to the end of that 3-month period and they realize, I didn't really see as much as I thought I would. And I'm disappointed. I made a time commitment and a financial commitment to be here for 3 months so I could immerse myself and live like a local. And basically what I've done is immerse myself in front of my computer and live locally by calling the food in or going out every once in a while. So the best is when you're really able to have the flexibility and you become very fluid in that true integration. So there are business obligations and you have to stay on top of those. Your clients are expecting things. Your bank account is expecting things. You have a business that you're running. And you want to make sure that you're also enjoying your travel opportunities. Otherwise, you really may have stayed at home. So it's the integration that really creates the travel business lifestyle. That's what the essence is when I say combine everything you love to do with every place that you want to go. That's what that statement is.
Yeah, I'm laughing because this morning on our pickleball court, we have a lot of what I would call snowbirds here. Well, they're people who come year after year after year, and they maybe come here for 3 months. And I know that they're business owners because they just show up, and some of them are fairly young, 40s and 50s, and I'm going like, yeah, you can tell they're out there doing their priority, which is playing pickleball first and then business in the afternoon. So we get to see a lot of that, and you can almost tell the difference between the communities, sometimes between the travelers that are just hitting the town for 5 days and the people that are here longer because they're more relaxed, they have more time to enjoy, they really anchor themselves in the geography, they learn more about the culture. So that's very interesting. So
that is the goal. So the goal is do something in the morning and then I have to go back to work for the rest of the day. It's how to have an immersive experience, engage in the culture, live like a local, really, really have a temporary slice of living in some place that isn't your home country. And so that's why the integration is so important, because not everybody wants to move abroad for several years. So the concept is more, I'd like to go live in Romania for 3 months, and then I'd like to go spend time in Paris for 2 months, and then I'm going to go over to Australia for another 3 months. So there's smaller slices of allowing to experience, the nomadic life. So it's such a great blend, and it's a really a unique way to live. So vacation is all the way over on one side, very short, very, very quick. You're kind of blowing through a lot of things. Permanent, this is my new home, and I'm a full-blown expat. So it's really that meeting in the middle that's my audience. That's what they're learning how to do.
And there's lots of shades to that. I'm sure that our audience who are listening are aware of lots of people who are, what I would say, settled expats, part-time expats, digital nomads, global citizens, and people who bounce between 2 or more places. But I would like to ask you, what do you think the importance of having a home base is? Tell me about having a home base, and what does that really offer your psyche in terms of being out in the world? Because we 3 of us here all have home bases.
Yes. Yeah. Home base is, there comes a time in your life, now I sound like an old granny, there comes a time in your life where you realize that couch surfing isn't going to cut it, or living out of a suitcase, no, it's not that glamorous, or just even let me go here, and here, and spend short periods of time, a couple weeks, a month, something like that. That can be very exhausting. So at a certain point in your life, you just don't want that kind of, you just don't have it in you to be that kind of agile in every single thing that you do. So a home base gives you a sense of permanence. There's an anchor. You have your stuff, so that's, which is the other thing when you get to a certain age. So the certain time in your life is, that just sounds like an awful lot of work and I don't want to do it. And there's also a certain age where you have a lifestyle that isn't conducive to all that moving around. I love to come home and sit in my library with all of my books. I have a fairly large library. I'm a big reader. I like my bed, I like my stuff around me so that I know it's there. Everything from the decorations to, it feels like you're being wrapped up in your place by a blanket, all of it. Right. So having a home base provides the sense of, you've got some sense of permanency there, which I think is important when you're a very frequent traveler. It can get really chaotic if you don't have some kind of home to go to. And then again, you get to a certain point in your life and you want the routine when you're at home. You want the comfort when you're at home. So I have always found it to be just a beautiful blend of both. You don't have to worry about where am I going to go next, because next always is, if you want, I'm just going to go home. And it provides you with it, which is a different sense of permanency.
And I think that really gives a sense of balance so that you feel like you can be out in the world. After we did serial expatriatism for 4 decades, then we felt like we could go out in the world and come back, but it was exhausting. And there is a certain period when you get to a certain stage when you go, this is really exhausting, or something happens like getting a knee replacement, and where you're actually held up from doing any more traveling for months at a time, which is very frustrating. So having that home base and encouraging people to keep one somewhere, I think is really, really makes a lot of sense.
What's something that you wish you knew earlier on your journey to location independence? We always wish we knew more.
I think I probably go back to that whole, as long as I have my laptop, I'll be fine. So what did I wish I knew? I wish I knew that having an actual strategy that can be implemented with supportable tactics is really important. When you're abroad, you can't just get in your car and drive to wherever you need to be very quickly if there's a problem. There's no 1-800 number to call. Sometimes just getting a 1-800 number, even from a foreign country, the phones go bananas. If things go wrong, if you get homesick, all of it, that being able to keep a routine is an important part when you're a frequent traveler. So in the context of what I do when I'm working with my clients, I always talk about, you have to know what your business needs, but you have to know what you need. And a lot of people overlook that. So are you a morning person? Are you a night person? Do you need a lot of socialization? Do you need a lot of alone time? Do you prefer to work in the morning, work in the afternoon? You know, all of that. People don't really think about that because that's a vacation mentality is I'm going with the flow and it's all going to be good. And that's exactly what you need if you're on a vacation. Unplug and go with the flow and do whatever it is that you need to do. But again, when you're talking about living abroad or just living out of your home office, it doesn't have to be out of the country, and you're simultaneously running a business that you need to get in a different headspace. So having a plan, having a strategy, and being very clear on what does my business need, because that is actually different than what I need. I would have known the difference between those two things when I first started.
Oh, that's great. That's terrific. To follow up on this bit about having a strategy, I'm just real curious. Since we have moved to Mexico and this is now our new home base from where we travel. One of the things that happens in Mexico is that if you die in this country, you have to be buried within 24 hours, much like the Middle East, where we came from. And interestingly enough, those two cultures are very similar, very different, but very similar. What do you recommend to people how do you recommend they think about what if something catastrophic comes up? Do you talk about healthcare with them? Do you talk about policies? Do you talk about emergency evacuation back home? Do you talk about medevac stuff? How do you think people should be thinking about that if they're considering taking their business into location independence land?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. So I do a broad overview of it where you absolutely get travel insurance. So you need to look at health insurance. You need to look at in the event of and think along those lines so you have some kind of plan. Now, at that point, I'll usually refer them out because I don't go into the nitty gritty details of here's how you would evacuate a country in the event that you needed to very quickly.
They're all different. You can't, because every country is different. Every embassy is different. And even if one country has one policy, their consulates handle it differently.
Right. So number one, look into the country in which you are wanting to stay for a significant amount of time. What are their rules and regulations? What are their expectations? Do some research, because you also don't want to land someplace and go, I have an apartment for 3 months and I've been here for 72 hours and this is never going to work because I got to get out of here. So really understanding the country where you're going to visit. Are you going to fit in socially? Are you going to fit in culturally? And what do you need to do to make sure that you're doing your part as the foreigner to honor the traditions and the cultures of wherever it is that you are? I also recommend people learn at least please, thank you, good morning, good evening, where is the bathroom, where is the whatever in the local language, because there's a big difference between I will not speak your language and I'm sorry, I don't know how to speak your language. So I'm a language freak. I love learning languages. So I started taking French when I was 13, and I learned very quickly that when you attempt to speak the host country's language, they're very forgiving. They don't expect you to be bilingual, trilingual, whatever lingual, but just an effort. They quickly understand. Thank you. Thank you for trying. And I understand you're not fluent in it and I am fluent in your language. So let's converse that way. So a big recommendation I always make is learn some basics of the language so that they know that you're trying. It's just that you're incapable, which is not I'm refusing and I'm unwilling. So that would be one. Another one is just understanding simple things with your technology. So if your laptop goes down, what are you going to do? I always travel with a laptop and an iPad because I've had this happen. One of them will tend to go down. It's usually the laptop. One of them will go down and I don't have to break stride. I just roll on over to the iPad. So bring the appropriate gear so that you can run your business, which then would lead into the next part, which is, well, how do you keep that all safe? So exactly. Traveling with some gear, you need to have some serious packing skills, because you also don't want to go for 3 months with a fleet of luggage. So understanding what it is that you really need to take, what you really can live without, and you need to live at home. And then what kind of financial protection are you going to have that in the event something goes awry and your stuff goes away? Right. So those would be my top recommendations of what you need to think about if you're going to travel long term.
Yeah, excellent. And how do you introduce people to a sense of belonging? How do you recommend that they find their tribe? when they arrive in a place? Do you recommend that they do preparation prior to their departure? Of course, there's lots more research we can do now. Before we went to Saudi Arabia, we didn't have internet, and so we got a post report and you got an orientation, and that was it. But how would you recommend people think about their sense of belonging?
Yeah, I love this question because this to me is, we've got two categories going on here with how do you create your own sense of belonging. Look at the facts and then look at the feelings. So the facts are, do all your research. Do you know how to dress appropriately? Do you know how to engage appropriately? Are you going to be able to honor, to the best of your knowledge, the cultures and the custom of your new host country? So those are the facts. You want to make sure that you have some basic understanding of what all of that is. I mean, mistakes are always going to be made, but again, it's different than an egregious fault, something you could have figured out if you'd done a little bit of research, to just the nuances of, oops, I didn't know that was really that appropriate in this country. So the facts are everything that you can find on the internet through research. That's just going to allow you to be prepared to start a new job. I need to know so that I have the best chance of being successful in this job. Those are the facts. The feelings, and this is, I love dipping into this anytime I'm traveling. The feelings are, what is the history of this country? Why are these people the way that they are? So you can research and you'll get some wonderful facts about their history and their cultural endeavors, and you can get plenty of the facts. But what I love to do when I'm traveling to any new foreign country is I love to read fiction about that country.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I really love reading historical romance novels.
Right.
They're just fun to me, but they really give you an interesting insight. Not
accurate, but it's good. It's good enough to get a cultural context.
Yeah. Not that any author, if you just read one author and it was a historical romance for America, you'd go, well, this is America. But it gives you a context. And naturally, what I also find pops up when you're a traveler is you tend to be curious by nature anyway. So reading some fiction, we learn so much from fiction, right? So you'll read something fiction about what is this place? What is that? And then that leads you to more research. So it's just a great way to simultaneously start getting your facts and your feelings all rolling in, so that when you get there, you have a better chance of, again, being successful and having a good experience there.
Very good.
I agree with that. When I was traveling, I started reading a series about a detective in France. So it was murder mysteries. And it kind of gives you the feel for the environment and the area, I mean, I wasn't going to run into him or, didn't expect to have a murder mystery to solve, but you're correct. And you have that curiosity to travel anyway. And so this just enhances that.
And I can't remember the name of the series, but there's a very, very famous series. I've been to the place where it's been filmed and everything about Scotland. Diana Gabaldon's books. What is it?
Outlanders.
The Outlanders. And so I often laugh when so many people talk to me about Scotland. I'm like, yeah, you learned this from the Outlanders, didn't you? And it's fun, and it's a place of connection. It's a place to start with. So I think that's a really good tip. What other tips do you have for people to create their sense of belonging and feel like they can create a little bit of community? How do you recommend they find a community when they arrive?
The first thing is just to be very, very open-minded. So as you know, I like using eating dinner in Spain as an example. Dinner starts at about 10.
Yes.
So in America, at 10 o'clock, that's where we're going to start dinner. No. This is all kinds of wrong. Well, you've really got two choices. You can embrace that they eat dinner at 10 o'clock at night and join the party, or you can eat dinner at your standard 6 p.m., which tends to be American time, and eat by yourself, which is what's going to happen. So the first thing is you have to have an open mind and get into the rhythm of your host country. That's the easiest way to really start meeting people, because otherwise you're just going to naturally isolate. If you adhere to the schedule you keep while you are at home, that may in fact be the most isolating thing that you can do. So definitely have an open mind and get into the rhythm of your host country. The second thing is just ask questions. Most people are really, now as Americans, as an American, we tend to have the people perceive us as being very nosy and kind of intrusive because we're open and we ask questions. But what I have found is that for the most part, as long as you don't go straight in with something really intrusive, they're happy to strike up a conversation.
Yes.
What often happens is you attract kind of other travelers. And so other travelers are also experiencing the same thing. There's a potential for isolation, a potential for loneliness. So people are more than happy to engage with you in a conversation because the likelihood is they are looking for the same thing. So be open and then just engage in conversations and ask polite and appropriate questions. But that's usually just the easiest way to start the beginnings of building relationships.
Yeah, I think that's a really good one because pace and rhythm is cultural. And we come from a different culture, and cultural is invisible. It's not something you can like tell by a person's skin what their culture is. It's very, very different. And so I think that's really good advice. And what else do they have to think about other than a sense of belonging? And how do you recommend they think about identity? I mean, I'll give you an example of identity. When I was in Iran, there was a whole bunch of us, and it was a women's group, right? It was a women's tour, and the Canadians all had their Canadian flags. Well, of course, it was the Canadian embassy that got the hostages out, and so they were mad at the Canadians. They kept asking us, "No, we want to speak to the Americans." And sometimes we wear things or we say things that give away our nationality or our backgrounds. And how do you recommend that people navigate all those oops? I mean, I think they're going to happen anyway. But how do you share with people to prepare themselves for the oops?
Yeah. I love this topic, and as we live in a more challenging globalist society, it becomes important to talk about these kind of things. So how do you establish and hang on to your sense of identity when you're traveling? The first thing is your identity is that you're a human. You're a human being having a human experience. You're just geographically in different places at different times.
Yeah.
So I always love to start there. When I was 20, I was studying in Paris, and I went down, we had spring break, and I went down to Italy by myself, and I got on a train, and I was young. I didn't really know that much what I was doing. And I also didn't have a lot of money at 20. So I got onto this train. It was an overnight train, 12 hours down to Rome. And so I was in one of those, they slip the seats out and everybody can lie down kind of thing. And I thought, okay, this is a little uncomfortable. I'm a single woman in my 20s. Well, I was in with this lovely family from Brazil, but there were 6 of us. And you're with these people for 12 hours. And I will never forget this. I was just observing them for 12 hours. They spoke very little English. I speak no Portuguese. And there was one man, and he spoke enough where we could kind of have a little bit of a conversation. So there was very little actually being said. But what I noticed was they got hungry. They got thirsty. The moms had a couple of kids. She was asking her husband, clearly, even though I didn't speak Portuguese, to go get a sandwich for the baby and milk for the baby. When it was time to go to bed, she put her bed out and she curled herself around the baby to keep the baby protected. There were some knocks on the doors in the middle of the night. The men sprang up to see what was happening. And I thought, this is fascinating. We can't even really communicate with each other, but we are communicating just because we're human beings who have the same experience. We all want shelter and water and to take care of our loved ones and to be free to do whatever it is that we want to do. We have some basic human needs because it's just the way that we're wired. So when you respect that in yourself and you respect that in other people and you realize we have a commonality, regardless of anything else, the commonality is that we are human beings having human experiences. So that is the first and foremost identity. If you lead in with that, then it becomes much easier to not have some oops because you're thinking more of I'm more like you than I am not like you. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I don't think anybody should ever have to apologize for the nationality or the country where they were born or the cultures or the customs that they practice, provided it doesn't hurt other people. So I've had some really interesting conversations where the other person was clearly not a fan of Americans. And I've had some really great conversations with people who absolutely love Americans. So you need to hang on to your identity and be proud of it and know that, and we see this more and more now, a certain group of people doesn't represent who you are. And to be okay with that, and to know some people are going to lump you into a category and they're not going to like you because you're a category. And some people are going to realize that you are an individual who just happens by accident of birth to be in a particular category, and they will actually welcome the opportunity to have a conversation with you. One of the things that I love most about traveling is that it's that traveler's mindset, which is, I see you as a human, I recognize you as a human, and some of the things in your category have been confusing to me at times. I would love to get your insight on it. And I love that it breaks down those barriers. And I love that it really changes your perception of who people are, which sometimes is just in your mind because of the place they come from. So how do you maintain your identity? Number one, you're a human first. That's your identity. Number two, by circumstance of birth, you've got some geography attachment there, which means that you've got some cultures and some customs and a way of thinking that are going to be different from the other parts of the world. But if you respect the human identity first, you really don't run into that much trouble. There will be oops, but again, what I found is the oops are they're laughing with you, not at you.
You don't, and never take it personally. That's the only thing I would add to that. And I think that the idea of the identity, a sense of belonging, and having a pace and rhythm. Do you recommend that people find a cultural mentor when they arrive somewhere, especially if they're going to be there for like 3 months? And how would they do that?
That is a great question. I have never done that. Actually, I've just done my own research. And I also tend to make friends pretty quickly. So I find that I will latch on to somebody who's happy to have me latch on to them. And then they become my cultural mentor. And those are really rewarding experiences. They'll also push you out of your comfort zone, which I tend to like too, as most travelers do. We're going to do weird things and eat weird food and go to strange places. And I love all of that.
Yeah, that's great.
Like you would really be fun to travel with, Jane.
I've heard that. I like to think so, but I definitely have my moments where I am unpleasant.
Oh, we all do.
We all do.
Well, that goes back to knowing what you need. I seem to have no filter, not with my mouth. I'm actually fairly decent with that. But I have no filter. I go from I'm fine to I'm exhausted and I have to go to bed right now. And I'm fine. I feel right now or people's heads are going to come off, kind of thing. So I never knew that about myself until I was traveling with people. And they would say, man, when there's no I'm getting hungry, there's I feed now. There's no we need to think about wrapping this excursion up. I need to go to bed right now. Yeah. So again, knowing what it is that you need, and that has enabled me to create my own boundaries and my own rhythm. And I actually tell people now, please don't ever take this personally, but there's going to come, I can guarantee you, there's going to come a time where I'm going to say, be in my room, and you're going to say, is it me? And I'm going to say no, and it's really not, but it's me, and I just don't want to be with anybody. And that could be for a day, it could be 2 days, it could be a week. I don't know what the time frame is, but I know just being able to communicate that to my travel partners. Now it's not like, what is wrong with her? There's nothing wrong with me. It's, guys, I'm tapped out. I'm just tapped out. I need to go sit in my room by myself or walk around town by myself, but please don't include me in anything. I love you. It is not you. It is me, and I've hit my point. And so knowing what you need and being very, very clear on that also enables you to communicate that so other people don't misinterpret what's going on with you and they don't take it personally.
Yes. And that's a very good point. Last week, I was actually on a bus trip, on a bus tour. First time I've been on a bus tour in a long time. And I noticed that, we were all in our community at some points, but then there were other points when we were all like, need to go breathe, need to go, walk, need to go process the energy, need to go sleep. And it can hit you just like that, especially if you're out in the heat and your brain, you're listening to a guide and you're observing. And so I think that self-care is really important when you're on the road. It's important to understand the sensory and the neuroscience that is going on inside your brain is going to be, everything's going to be tuned up. I mean, it's like you're taking a knob and listening to a volume. It's like the volume of the taste, the smell, the sounds, the sights is so turned up that sometimes we forget that we actually need to take more time to have that TLC and that personal space.
Yeah, it's sensory overload. And
it is
one of the things that I love about staying for longer periods of time is there's not I've got it. I was traveling recently with some really, really great friends, and they were on vacation, and I was there for 3 months. And it was get up every day. We're meeting for breakfast. We're going to here and we're going to there. And then we're going to get back at night from 10 o'clock. And then I went up. So I met them for breakfast one day, and I went like one step above wearing my pajamas down to the common breakfast room. And I said, I don't know what you all are doing today, but I know what I'm doing. I'm staying in bed with my books and maybe some Netflix going on to my computer. I know that sounds horrible because we're in this beautiful place, but I'm at my point. I can't take it anymore. And I did.
And then you're not enjoying being in that beautiful place. So what's the point?
Yeah.
Yes, I think this is all about self-awareness. So that kind of leads us back to the third thing that you were talking about right at the beginning, which was the mindset. And just in closing, it's been great to reconnect to you again and to hear your voice and to see the enthusiasm with which and the skill with which you can assist people who are moving in that direction and in that trajectory. But can you just talk a little bit in closing about the mindset that you think that it's important, and how do you support that mindset? Because mindset changes, right? Every thought changes it.
So it's probably been at least 10 years at this point, if not longer. I really don't know when this thought originally hit me, but I was in the middle of something that was very irritating that I had no control over. That I don't remember, but it was whatever. Mm-hmm. The plane wasn't able to leave, or the restaurant was shutting down, whatever the situation was. And what I do remember is going, oh, okay. Well, at home, especially back then, before I had this realization, I was not an okay kind of person. What do you mean? So I'm not a chew people out. I will kind of take it in, but that when things don't go as I have them planned in my head, used to, it would be very upsetting to me. And I noticed in that moment, I thought, why is this okay? This wouldn't be okay at home. And it was literally okay. And then I really started to pay attention to it. And I noticed that every time something didn't happen the way I thought it should, when I was traveling, it was, oh, okay. Or it might be, well, this kind of stinks. I was really looking forward to that. Well, what are we going to do instead? And I thought, man, I'm the best version of myself when I travel, because I am not like this at home. I can really get bent out of shape about stuff. And after that, then it became, when it became the realization, then it was already natural, but then I was able to apply it when situations were more escalated than something, missing a plane or the plane not being able to take off can be a very minor situation in the big scope of everything. So the mindset of a traveler is somebody who says, oh, okay, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. This isn't the plan I had in my head. These were not my expectations, but okay, I'm going to figure out a workaround. I'll go do something different. I'll regroup and I'll come back. I'm going to make the best of this situation, and I'm really not going to spend any more time worrying about it. So let's just go do whatever it is we need to do now. A tourist says, I can't believe this is happening. This is unacceptable. Why is this not meeting my expectations? And I've seen people have absolute meltdowns that will ruin their mood and everybody else's for the rest of the day over the restaurant being out of the soup that they ordered, or they wanted a double bed and it was a single bed. And it's just the energy that comes off of them is so negative and so overpowering. So it makes you uncomfortable within yourself because you're just going to spend all this time being angry, and it makes you a terrible travel partner.
Yeah.
Travel with you if you're always up in arms because things aren't happening the way you thought they should.
Exactly. That's the essence of adaptability.
Yes, it's adaptability, living like a traveler rather than a tourist. A traveler says, okay. A tourist says, this isn't like it was supposed to be.
Right. Thank you so much, Jane, for joining us today. All those words of wisdom. It's amazing.
And where can people find you? How can we find you? How can our listeners seek you out and study with you and learn the adaptability factors and about the sense of belonging, the pace, the rhythm, and everything else that we covered today?
Yeah, so you can catch me at wanderthe7.com. It's wander, WANDER, and then the number 7. So wanderthe7.com. Mm-hmm. You can also catch me on innoventurous.com. So I've got a high degree and specialization in sales training and sales strategy. So my original company is all about really training sales, developing sales strategies for people and sales training for those business owners. And then what I've done is just layer in the travel piece of it. And there's also a really magnificent downloadable free resource. It's a beautiful 55-page guide. I take no credit for it being beautiful. That was my team.
Send us the links.
Okay.
And, well, for our listening audience, please check the show notes and the social media that we put out with and for Jane Garee. And we hope that you will follow and listen and study with her, and that you will continue to hang out with us and follow, listen, and share Nomadic Diaries. Last words, Sharon?
I just want to thank Jane for revealing some secrets, and that's what we like to do here at Nomadic Diaries. Thank you again, Jane. Hope many safe travels to you.
Thank you. You too.